September 27, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2000 tick chart on the NinjaTrader 8 platform. This is this is what the charts look like today. You can go down to the descriptions below to see where I took my trades as well as where I thought I saw setups. There was no real piece of economic data today that would move the markets, it seemed. And overall, this is what the overall chart that I drew looked like. It looks like there was one shallow leg, which is captured by this red trend channel, and then a more steeper yellow channel. But then I later found maybe this purple channel that kind of fit. Nevertheless, there wasn't that many good setups that I could find. I marked a bunch, but they were all falling short of a good trade for one reason or another. Then right around 11:30 Pacific Standard, I don't know why, but the market decided to rally for a good 20 minutes, or in this case, let's see, good, 23 minutes. And I'm not sure why it did this, but it pretty much took back this big sell-off all the way back to the pre-market lows. Now, similar to yesterday, I saw a bunch of almost setups, or pretty much like a lot of second entries that were around the EMA, but they are always kind of like on the wrong side. I'm going to try to point them out as I go, point out as many as I can find. I took one trade today and it was green. Even then, when I look back, the trade was so-so, but I just kind of, when I took it here early on, the rest of the day, it was very hard to find something reliable or safe. So let me get into the trades right now. Oh, this blue line is just something that I noticed. It was kind of like a bounce, and then acted as a resistance, another bounce, another kind of support here. So it didn't really provide any good key entry points for a trade though. So this is the pre-market. Let's see, pre-market high, pre-market lows. I marked it off. It didn't really stay in this range for too long, and then later the pre-market lows kind of came into play. So here we go. This is the pre-market. It looked like it rallied, and then it sold off, made a pretty big chop. It had one leg down, one push up, kind of a second push up, and then there's a second leg down. But there was no trade that I could find. It was also pretty congested today. A lot of the candles were pretty much side by side, so it was hard to trust any clean second entries. But the first setup I saw was right here. It's a new low. You have first entry short, followed by a second entry short. Then I also saw it as a second entry long that failed because you have a new high here. You come all the way down, you make this first entry long, comes up, and then technically you have a second entry long here because it breaks below and it comes right back up. So I saw this as a first entry long, pull back, second entry long, and then this was about to create the failure. The failure is actually right here for the second entry long, and the second entry short is confirmed. The problem is it's a good signal bar for the second entry short. It closed below the EMA, but the failure is like for the second entry long is a little bit kind of like takes some interpretation. So I wasn't really sure. Plus this is right at the market open, like 2 minutes after. The signal bar itself, which would be this guy, is kind of an inside bar for the second entry short. And I just didn't feel like it was a good setup. I wanted to wait for a better setup. So actually, let me just move the chart to make it look like what I saw in real time. So then prices continue chopping. I think I'm in this big blue range at this point. I see this as a new high. It's a first entry long, pulls back, creates a second entry long, then here creates a second entry long failure. The signal bar for the second entry long, which would be this guy, isn't very good though. So you wouldn't be thinking of going long. Plus, it's a little bit hard to know which way the market's going because right now it's kind of in this range. And you can see it went from high to low, or actually it's from here, low to high, back down to low, back up to high, back down to low. And here it failed. So here you're not really sure it's going to go up or down. And here when you get your confirmation that it failed second entry long, the trade already passed. So when it failed here, unless you took it on engulfing, it'd be very risky to take it one tick below here because you're clearly running into some kind of support here that has been respected by price action. So it'd be risky to take any kind of short here. And definitely you wouldn't be thinking of going long necessarily. Prices then chop down. I draw this red channel right now because I saw, okay, one touch, two touch. And in between throughout the day, I was playing with all kinds of channels to see what would fit best. And ultimately, at this time of day, I thought, okay, this is a red line, and then I like the touches at the bottom, but I didn't really like that, it didn't touch the body of the candle, but this is the best I could do. I did like the top a little bit more, so I was looking for a third confirmation of the top side. This is just too congested to find any good trade. Chops around, it confirms the lower part of this red channel pretty nicely, and I like that. I also noticed that it didn't make a measured move from this one leg down. There's this consolidation, then it made a second move, and it was right here. It was just kind of like respecting this measured move. But as I said, there was no real trade to take. Prices then went up. So technically, you have a new high, first entry long, second entry, no second entry long. Here, it's setting up for second entry long. It confirms and makes a second entry long. And this is actually right around where I took my first trade, because I saw first entry long, second entry long. It is below the EMA. It is looking like it might want to break back into this range, this blue one, but I wasn't sure. So I wasn't ready to take a trade yet, but I did like this double bottom because I thought the measure move is made, and then one push up, one attempt back to test this high. Maybe it's going to make a second attempt to maybe get back to the red side or the top of this channel. So here, when it created this triple bottom and it was bouncing around, I actually dropped my order one tick above this guy, and I actually got filled 2 ticks above. So I got a little bit of slippage, but I liked what I saw, and I was thinking, okay, I wasn't too concerned about the EMA at this point because I was thinking there's enough room maybe for a quick scalp. And I was able to quickly get a quick 1-point scalp. Now, I think in hindsight, when I looked and reviewed this trade, I think it was definitely a riskier trade because this did form below the EMA, even though the EMA is flattening out. Overall bias is kind of trending downwards because you're making lower highs every time and lower lows. So to take a long is a little more riskier. I mean, it did work out, but that doesn't justify, let's say, that that was a good trade necessarily. Plus, I was running into the midline of this channel, which I considered, but not too much at the time. But when I look back, I thought, after looking back, I thought, okay, maybe this wasn't the best trade. So just be more cognizant of everything that's happening around the entry. So, anyways, then prices continue moving. If you went to go for a little bit more, you probably would have gotten 2 points. I saw this as it's not going to go back up to touch the red necessarily anymore. I drew this channel or this trend line coming down because it touched pretty nicely. I wasn't sure where the bottom of it was. So I just kind of arbitrarily actually had a little bit higher cutting through where the midline was. And then it broke through. Then I actually dragged it from where the midline was down here and then just put in a dotted midline there. There's just too much congestion here. Look at these candles. These bodies are just side by side. There's no trade to be taken there. Prices then continue moving down. It looks like it found some kind of support here. It starts moving up on this channel, but I'm not that happy with this channel necessarily. There is a supporting trend line here, and maybe the top would be here, but it just doesn't look clean. Look at these candles, just like doji, very neutral. It just wasn't giving me much confidence. And then you do have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, but this is a terrible signal bar. It's kind of in the middle of a mini congestion trading range, so there was no trade here. I didn't even bother marking it. And again, you also have like second entries here, like first entry, second entry, but this is a bad signal bar to go long, and it looks like you're running into the EMA, which could be supporting it, but you don't really know. So again, I didn't mark it. I did mark this one though. I saw this as a new low. So first entry short, then I saw this one as a second entry short. The second entry short, unfortunately, formed above the EMA. This isn't the best signal bar, this second entry short. I wanted it to actually close below the EMA. That give me confidence to go first entry short. And then the setup, if this had closed below, then you wouldn't be as concerned about potentially running into this or potentially in the midline. But unfortunately, when this candle formed, the trade already happened and it flashed through. So if had this actually formed a little bit better, then I think there would have been a possible trade because you would have gotten all the way down to here. Now this is kind of an example of a lot of setups I saw today where it's just kind of right at the EMA. They're just, for one reason or another, kind of not a very clean setup. So it always gave me pause. So I ended up passing on pretty much the rest of the day of the trades. The prices continue moving down. It falls into this channel, what I think is a channel. Again, it comes up. When I saw this, I was wondering, did I miss some kind of setup? But I couldn't find one, couldn't justify taking a trade here. Prices then continue down. It chops into this small little channel. It looks like it's reversing up. I don't see a good setup. Technically, you have a new low first entry short. You could argue this is a second entry short here, or maybe a second entry short on a bigger time frame. But in that case, you would just see one leg up, pull back, and maybe a second leg up, because I saw one leg up, pull back. Maybe it's going to make a measured move. And it kind of does, but it just wasn't convincing enough to take a trade. Plus, if I took a short, this is kind of like, I'm not really sure, how to justify if I took a short, what kind of trade that would be. It would just look, not clean. So then prices then chopped around. It falls kind of in this consolidation. First entry long, second entry long, failure. But it is congested again, and I think I have a trading range here. It's just kind of chopping this range. Technically, you have a new low, first entry short, second entry short, but this is a bad signal bar. It would not have told you, or in my case, have flagged me to get a short trade prepared, just because this is just not that clean. It looks, for the most part, kind of ugly. It continues chopping and kind of breaks through, falls down through this orange channel, which is really nice, except there was no clean way that I could see to enter it. Then I do see the second entry short as a new low. First entry short, pulls back, second entry short. This second entry short, I thought was, so-so. It's a good signal bar. It kind of formed below the EMA. You're going with trend. You broke out of this orange channel, made one attempt down, and this could be the second attempt down. The EMA rejection definitely helps, but I didn't feel there was enough room to scalp out. Even if you took it right here to the bottom here, you technically could get your 1 point, but I wasn't 100% sure yet. So unfortunately, I had to let that one go. The prices did keep going down. Like in hindsight, maybe there's a trade here. I didn't have this green channel drawn yet, so I was only playing off this orange one. I saw break, first attempt down, push up, second attempt down. Also this blue line doesn't exist yet. It was just kind of later in the day I drew it in just to see. I thought I saw something happening around this range. But then prices continue down, but look at these candles. They're very, 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 very much pretty much the same side, and there's a lot of good overlaps. So it's hard to trust any kind of setup, plus any kind of like first entries or second entries are only one tick above. So it's hard for me to decipher whether it's just part of one leg, or can I really treat it as a first break up and then maybe a second break up. So I had to sit on my hands today a lot. Kind of comes down. So here, when I drew this yellow channel, I saw one touch, two touch, but I actually drew up here after I drew the bottom, because I saw this touching 3 to 4 times. I said, this looks pretty good. I'm going to drag it up, and maybe there's a channel up here, this yellow one. Prices get noisy. Price action is getting noisy. I have a new low, first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short here. I got interrupted by a phone call. So actually, it's first entry short, second entry short. This is a good signal bar. You don't have enough information, in my opinion, to actually take a short, because this is what you see right now. You see a bullish bar. Technically, it's very neutral. Then you see a double bottom bullish bar. So to believe that you're going to come up with a second entry short to go short, it's just a little bit hard right now to see that. Then you do have a confirmed second entry short, but I'm just not ready to take a short, especially after the close of this signal bar, because you're running right into the EMA. So it's definitely just kind of like a sit on hands, no trade, no setup really. And I actually see a second entry long that's hidden. So I see a new high. I see a first entry long. It breaks below and it comes right back up. So on the life of this candle, I thought this would be a second entry long that's hidden. Because if you went to a smaller time frame, you'd probably see a first entry long. And since this is a 2000 tick, if you went to something smaller, you'd probably see a pullback and then another push up. But the second entry long, I did draw this at the time. It just wasn't convincing enough for me to take a trade. Yes, it's there. There is enough room to scalp out before you hit the highs. But the thing that was unsure of was it's kind of counter trend to the overall clearly bearish day, which had kind of a lot of weird little fake outs. So I wasn't ready to take this trade, to assume there was going to be a correction in play. I wanted probably a higher low confirmation to feel more confident, but it has to form correctly too. So you don't get a higher low till about right here, but this isn't convincing because it's like a bearish bar. So in other words, if it closed more bullish, then maybe, but then also I'm running into the localized high, so that makes me nervous. Like if this was actually just, this candle was higher and you had more room to scalp out, then there would potentially be a trade there. Then prices continue moving up. I don't have this purple channel yet, so keep that in mind. I'm still playing off the yellow channel. Comes down. I see a first entry short. You have a second entry short, bad signal bar, so you would not have known to go short, at least in my case. And then I see a lower high here. So I see a first entry short, second entry short pulls up, and potentially a lower high here. And when it formed on this inside bar, this is actually when I drew the purple channel, because I'm thinking maybe this yellow one wasn't that, maybe it was only valid here, and there's an overlapping potential purple channel here, because it touched really nicely here, but I couldn't get the bottoms to fit quite right. Nevertheless, since I'm looking for shorts, I'm more concerned about the top of the channel to go short or looking for setups. So it's like first inch short, second inch short, potentially a lower high. If this one formed below the EMA, it looked like it had two pushes up. So it's it had this big push up and then one leg down, push up, and then a second leg down. But I also saw this as potentially a visual, a new high, first leg up, pull back, second leg up, and now it's failing. So it's kind of like a bigger visual failed second entry long with a lower high on this smaller time frame. But this signal bar, I don't know, it's for whatever reason, I just wanted to close lower to feel more confident, but looked like there's too much tail here. So there was kind of indecision. Looked like buyers, for the most part, kind of tried to push it back up above the EMA, but they failed. So this is kind of like a just on the borderline. And I thought if you took an entry, it would have been aggressive. You'd have to be pretty confident on this interpretation of one leg down. It made one attempt to go back into this green range, one push up, made a second attempt and failed. So that's how you would have to have read it. And I, to be honest, didn't read it that quickly, that fast in real time to see it. I just saw a lower high, but I just kind of visually saw like, I think there's something here. And then of course, after the fact, I had to go back review it. And that's how I interpreted it. Fortunately, I wasn't that quick on my feet. I missed this potential setup. Prices then continue going down. It goes into this channel, chops around, enters this consolidation area. I have a new low, first entry short. You have a second entry short. The second entry short, though, even though it get pretty close to the EMA, I would not have felt comfortable taking this because there's a potential fail breakout. But this range is only about 2 points large, 2.5 points. So when it closed here, to take a short, you're just kind of running into the local lows as well as the bottom of the range. And that's just kind of dangerous. Even though it is clearly bearish day, you're already kind of toward the lows. It would be safer if the setup had been up here, because then you clearly have some better reason, better key entry points to take this trade. So I saw it, I just didn't do anything. It looked like it would have worked. And here, I finally have some kind of confirmation of this purple channel because I was debating maybe it was a little bit higher at one time, something like this. And I might have an overshoot. It does fit pretty well, one touch, two touch, three touch, and here. So whether you treat it as overshoot or you actually dragged it down, it's kind of on you. So I'm going to treat it like this for now. Comes up and I see a new low, first entry short, second entry short failure, also a new high, first entry long, second entry long. I didn't like this trade for the following reason. It's like, it's a good signal bar for the second entry long, but it's really, really small, tight trading. It's like, these are just one tick above, and then a couple ticks above. So it's like really, really congested here. It also felt a little early to think there's a correction to go take a trade here. Because yes, it broke above the EMA, but it was chopping sideways and then decided to go. So that just kind of gave me pause. It looked like it would have worked, but it would have been a slow crawl to get your profit target. And I don't know if I would have sat there comfortably watching this. Then it gets into this consolidation area. It just looks congested and, well, choppy. Comes back down, and you can just tell the whole day has been kind of like these candles, where it makes it very tough to trade because anytime there's a second entry setup, you get these tiny little setups here. And to trust it is like, well, pretty much the body's taking up the entire size of the candle. And do I trust it going long, or is it going to be a failure? It's hard to know, at least hard for me to know. Then prices, so right here, this starts the big, big rally that I have no idea why it happened, but there was no setups, no way to enter this. And that's unfortunate though, because it's like a big, beautiful move. Then it kind of consolidates and then it starts another pretty much slow grind all the way up. And it was at this point I thought, okay, there's some kind of support here, resistance. Looks like there was support here. Maybe this blue line is going to come into play. Whether I take a trade or not, it it wouldn't be based solely on this blue line. This blue line would just act as a second, third, or fourth key entry point to give me a justification to take a trade. But unfortunately, it didn't really happen today that way. So it comes down, technically you have a second entry long. So it's like first entry long here. You have a second entry long here, but this setup just looks really, really tight, really congested. Not something I want to attempt. And also you have a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. Again, it's on the wrong side of the EMA. Even though EMA is flattening out, it's just these candles are just very, very tight, very close together. And prices continue moving up, kind of keeps going. It's inside the pre-market range now. So it made its way all the way back. It was pretty surprising. Comes down, I see a first entry long. You have technically a second entry long. There's a good signal bar for a second entry long, but it's below the EMA. Plus, you just broke out of this green channel, so you're expecting to test the low. And then look at this piano keys right here. It's just like boom, 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 boom. Like, how do you trade this? You know, it's better just to sit out. Then it kind of comes up. It falls into what I think is a trading range. And I do see a failed second entry long here. It's a new high, first entry long, pulls back, second entry long, comes up, and then this is where a second entry long failure occurs. It's rejected by the EMA. Unfortunately, you're right at the low of this range, and this is how I drew it because I wouldn't fault anyone for dragging it lower to right here, or maybe it's just somewhere in between. So it's hard to know for sure what I'm looking at. Could this be a breakout pullback? It broke out here, failed breakout, came in, but it's actually going to continue downwards. I have no idea. So it's hard to really know for sure because I'm not sure how strong this pre-market low is either. Because for the most part, it looked like it acted as resistance, but didn't really act as support here until you get about here. So it could be a support now. So to go long feels risky, to go short feels risky. So then I have to kind of wait. Falls through, and again, this is where the blue line was, which ended up not really creating any trades or providing any setups that I could see comfortably. I saw this as a new low, first entry short, pulls up. This is where you have a second entry short. But the second entry short is a bad signal bar. So here, even though it came up the EMA, you wouldn't really be thinking, you could be thinking going short, but there's not a setup or a signal bar to make you really, really confident in taking this short, unless you just kind of through this green channel and you just trusted the strength of this green channel and rejected here, came down. I also know that this is kind of toward the end of the day, and pretty much I had one good, one profitable trade for the day, so I was green. I just didn't want to screw that up at the very last minute because, today was just not a lot of stuff happening, in my opinion, to get a good trade in. So I had to just kind of be patient and not try to, I guess, squeeze out another trade to try to get even more profit when there's only 13 minutes left. So I saw this, just decided, you know what, it's just not happening, just to let it go. And of course, you get into the last 10 minutes, and this is where price action gets a little crazy, just because so many people are closing out their positions. I mean, look at all this price action. And typically at the last 10 minutes, it's hard to really trust the setups because it just gets volatile and choppy. So I usually just stay out of that unless I'm already in a trade and I'm managing it. I will be honest that I have traded in here before, but those are probably very ill-advised trades to have taken. And then the market kind of goes into the close. So that's how I saw it today. Unfortunately, there wasn't that many setups. There were just a lot of things that were close, but for whatever reason, I got spooked. So hopefully that was helpful.